Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Again, once again, welcome to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Joy, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Tonight, the topic for discussion tonight is ethnicity, politics, and governance. Our guest, Samuel Sondah, all the way from Oakland, California. Mr. Sondah, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. It's actually Oakley, not Oakland.
Sorry, Oakley, California. And
Thank
we have
you.
James Larsah from Baltimore, Maryland.
Thank you, Dennis. Glad to be here.
All the way from Toronto, Canada is Nancy Reeves. Nancy, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's a pleasure having all of you tonight to discuss this very important subject on ethnicity, governance, and also politics. Let's go there to, first of all, we want to welcome all our guests from across the globe. Introducing the show tonight is that song Zach of Zach and Jiba that was a remix by David G. Sweet Liberia. Liberia is the only country we have, guys, and so we all have to help to make it what we want it to be. So once again, it's my pleasure having you. Nancy, I've been here before. Sondah and James, this is your first time. How do you feel being a Focus on Liberia?
Great.
I feel fantastic. Nice to be here to add to your list of people you've invited.
I mean, I have to take note of the high-tech savvy that is on display, as a matter of fact. Yeah, so I must commend you for that, and I look forward to an engaging discussion today.
So James, what Sweet Liberia? What is Sweet Liberia to you?
Where I was born, where I grew up, peaceful, where we had sufficient of just about everything until the event of the war. Sweet Liberia.
Really, really sweet.
Yeah.
What's about you, Mr. Sondah?
You know, there's nowhere like home, brother, no matter what. Home is home for you. I miss my dry rice, real oil, when kittle, you know, those little things here and there. So I miss the communal interactions, and I miss my childhood friends. Those are what it means. And of course, unfortunately for our millennials who are around today, I wish they had lived during our time to see the real Liberia or the Monrovia that some of us grew up in. We have some what's about you, Nancy? Sweet Liberia.
Oh, well, I still call Liberia my home. I still consider it to be where I was born, although I live in Canada. I've been here for 19 years. But as Sondah said, home is home. You know, I miss a lot of people. Whenever I'm in Liberia, I feel de-stress as much as I can. And I think I'm happy for that. And I always look forward to being in Liberia. So I keep in touch as much as I can with everyone. Thank goodness for Messenger.
All right. Our show tonight is entitled Ethnicity, Politics, and Governance. And trust me, I'm not going to ask anybody for their ethnic group. Personally, during the war, but it happens that, and this was not intentional, but it happens that on the show tonight, we have people who are from similar ethnic group, but that was not intentional. We try to get our guests from based on their backgrounds and not their ethnic groups. So by way of introduction, we want to start with Mr. Sondah, if I can find your intro. But even before we get to the introduction, I want you to take some time to share the video for those who are watching us. If you are on Facebook, please share the video. If you get the link, just share it. This topic is very important. Ethnicity always come up in our discussion. We ethnic group. So Mr. Sondah is the president. Currently, is the president of the Bond County Association in the Americas. He's like most of us. He was born in Liberia, Painesville to be specific. His parents have migrated from Bond County. He went to Haywood Mission School. That's his high school he graduated from. Matriculated to the University of Liberia, but just as many of us, his studies were disrupted by the Civil War, and he went to Ghana, where he got his first degree in political science. Another degree. We don't want to go into all of Sondah's degree, but Mr. Sondah, welcome to Focus on Liberia. He's married with 4 kids. His daughter, that's your daughter who just graduated, right?
It's expected to.
All right, it's expected to graduate. Also, we have Mr. James now Larsah. He's the former board chairman of the Union of Liberian Associates in the America. Right now, he works with the city of Baltimore. Mr. Larsah is a former legislator during the transitional government. He lived with his family in Baltimore, Maryland. He's married to beautiful Rashida Williams, who also comes from the same high school as me. Mr. Larsah, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Welcome, Dennis. Thank you. And she might be hearing you. She's in the kitchen there doing some work.
Last but not the least, the only lady among us, Madam Nancy Reeves. Just like most of us, her studies too, she graduated from Conala Academy and my high school, Monrovia College, we beat Conala one time in the so we get that on you. And she went to the university. Then also she went to, she did not complete as a result of the war, went to Ghana, got a certificate, went to Canada. There she got her undergraduate and master's in social work. Right now she's a clinical therapist and trying to complete her doctorate degree in social work. Mrs. Reeves is an instructor at many colleges and universities in Toronto, Canada. Ms. Reeves, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much.
All right. First of all, in Liberia, we say we have 16, 17, or 18 ethnic groups, depending, how you look at it. Sometimes they include Sapo, sometimes American Liberia. So let's start with you, Mr. Larsah, ethnic group or your ethnicity in Liberia. What does that mean to you?
Actually, based on what I have known since my upbringing, and in addition to additional information gathered from the resource materials submitted by you and from elsewhere, one can speak of an ethnicity. Or in my case, I will certainly think of the Pera people who are unique in quite a lot of ways, even among just Liberians. As a matter of fact, we're talking about people, a group of people who are very peaceable, very peaceful, respectful, kind, humble. I come from the Pera group that happens to be the largest ethnic group in Liberia, for example, but that fact is not as accentuated, probably because the Pera people don't put out on their shoulders or on their foreheads. It's not a card to carry around. So that's the group I come from. We farm, we live in a little village. It's a whole long story. I don't want to tie down, but I could go in and go. We have special traits and identities as a group of people. And since others will have to make, contribution in this respect, I would like to stop there. I want to say that the Pera are the largest, and in my view, they are the most peaceful people in Liberia. Thank you.
Mr. Sondah, ethnicity, sometimes we use the word tribe, which is kind of, derogatory in certain extent, but ethnicity in Liberia, when we say your ethnic group in a Liberian context, what does that mean? Or how do you explain it or interpret it?
By some sheer coincidence, we happen to be, Brother Larsah and myself, we happen to be from the same ethnic group. I'm a Pele. And for full disclosure, Mr. Larsah and myself, we work with the Bonn Varsity Students Association at the University of Liberia. He was the vice president, I served as secretary. So he and I, we go way back. But as he has already alluded to, when we talk about ethnicity, I think it's talking about some identity, trying to identify with your people. But then probably people will give you another qualification based on the situation at the time. But you and I know that the issue of identity, the issue of ethnicity is something that is bestowed, it's a divine endowment. I mean, this is, especially where you come from, it's not a matter of your choice. I didn't ask to be a Pele, I just happened to be one. And I accept that. And that's the gift from the ultimate reality. As somebody with that background, I cherish my identity, my ethnicity, and I love it. I know there are stereotypes about where I come from, and which, of course, we're going to be talking about. I believe it will come up when we'll try to address those issues. So it's just an identity, and I think it's not unique to Liberia. It spans around the entire globe, around the world. People have ethnic origins that can be identified by. So I'm a proud element. And as president of United Bong in the United States, that's what we are Bon County people. We are people, even though Bon County is not only the home of Pele people, there are other other tribes there, the Mandingo, the Bassa, the Mano, and other people are there. So I'm proud to be a Pele man any day.
Nancy, you have a social science background. When we talk of ethnicity, we're talking about a group of people. What sets an ethnic group apart from other ethnic groups based on, sociology, if I may say?
Well, thank you so much, Dennis. I'm actually a professor of social work at sociology. And from that perspective, you say what set them apart from other groups? The fact that they have a specific identity, and I don't know if it's a mistake you made or whatsoever it is, but for some reason, I'm from the same ethnic group with your two other guests. I'm also Pele.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
But I take from all sides. My mother is Bai, my dad is Pele Bassa. So I say I'm all three of them, but I'm more Pele. That's it. But what set them aside is the culture, values, and beliefs, and of course the norms. But they speak most likely one language, right? That I mean, very much unique to them. So you hear Pele people speak Pele, Vai people speak Vai, Gola people speak Gola, and so forth. So they share these common language, values, beliefs, and of course, food and dances, and all of these characteristics that makes them absolutely unique. And of course, majority of them settle in specific areas, as one of your as Sondah said, you can find them in other parts of the country. But when you go to Bon County, a majority you will see there will be Pele. You may find Mandingo or other groups in there, but the common characteristics is what makes them an ethnic group, and that is the values, beliefs, culture, language, food, dance, music, and so forth.
Okay, so next to ethnicity, we always find the word tribalism. Even though we try to modern people, we try to stay away from the word tribe, ask, oh, I'm of the Pele tribe, Mandingo tribe, Kru tribe, we say ethnic group. But when we come to tribalism, this is a term that is often thrown around in Liberian politics, in Liberian discussion. In most of the time, we talk about tribalism, right? What does that mean to you? Let me go back to you, Nancy. What is tribalism?
Well, what is tribalism? It's a practice that it portrays a negative connotation to a specific or ethnic groups, right, or to a tribe, right? So as we talked about, it's mostly the practice, right? So we have these special cultural values and beliefs, and the practice within those tribes that gives it the extra adjective that we call tribalism, and it's mostly practice towards another group. So we question all the time and say, well, we have this tribe, we have that tribe, and then where do we come from with these sort of negative practices that exist amongst tribe? And that practice, again, is what we refer to as tribalism. So tribe is the noun, we may say, and the lism is more of the practice. And in most cases, within the context of Africa, it's very negative.
Can it be positive?
Well, it can be positive if there is no issue around violence and discrimination and other negative practices within themselves or within towards another group.
Sondah, most of the time we talk of tribalism in Liberia, it's all negative. What are some of the examples that you can give us of the practice of tribalism?
Well, you know what? I lived in Ghana for a decade, and like some of you from the profile, we all may have, cross paths in Ghana. And one of the things I admire about them in these traditional settings, they celebrate various kinds of festivals that are unique to a particular group of people. So they will even celebrate the feast of harvesting, or when there's a religious observance, they will observe those things that are unique to them. So if the positive aspect are values that exist within your group that you celebrate for the enhancement of your people. When I was in the 6th grade in the late 1970s, I grew up in Monrovia, but my parents took me to initiate me in the society in my village. All right, and one of the reasons was that they wanted me to feel part of the community. So we went through that process, and I came away with a name, and I go there and I'm accepted. I'm a part of the people. So those are values that the people hold, and if you identify with them, along those lines, you become part of them. And also the group coming together and undertaking projects and programs. They come together as a group. Since the political and economic history of our country, some of the things that people undertake in their villages and towns, they have separate programs, projects. They make their own roles. So they have this gathering, they come together like maybe like a cooperative, we call it in the Pere de Coup. You come together as a group, we go and visit your farm, we'll help you with your farming, and from brushing all the way to harvesting, they will help you along that line. And if there are any issues to be taken care of as a people that will impact the community, they come together as a group and they have people with them, be singing, they will go, maybe if they will be to clean the road, or it will be to dig another well for the community, or to do something that will enhance their livelihood. They use their values to bring those things to bear on their community for the betterment of themselves.
Mr. Larsah, is tribalism good or bad?
I think it can be either. Actually, as a matter of fact, ethnicity, as you had asked earlier, ethnicity, I would like to say, actually is about the awareness, the consciousness of one of his own heritage. So that will come to be about, realizing, having a realization and understanding of what your own ethnic background is, the appreciation for that, the identity with that. That would be ethnicity. And now tribalism is separate from that. And I think that is a new kind of body of knowledge or phenomenon that is emerging, that in fact, unlike what most Western writers or authors have written in terms of ethnicity and tribalism in Africa, as if they were one. It will serve us better if we really get to understand, know more about that and separate them. There is a dichotomy. Tribalism should be about loyalty, the loyalty you feel towards your fellow tribal people, tribal identity. That should be tribalism. And ethnicity is about the awareness, just for you to be aware. Like I was trying to tell you, Dennis, I think 2 days ago or yesterday, that I think I'm relatively educated and grew up in Monrovia all through. I just didn't know until not too long ago that the Pera group was the largest group, by far the largest group in Liberia. It didn't occur to me, mainly probably because we don't carry that as a core. But just to get to know that it has a value to know that there's the largest group. Although even with that, we haven't done anything that will kind of make a demand in terms of the kind of presence we should have nationally or so. Because, for example, in Bond County, we have it's predominantly Pele, probably by 99%, and then you have Monserrato. Hello. Monserrato, I understand the Pera people are absolute majority there, 52% in Monserrato, although that can be argued, but it's easy to establish that. And then you go to Basa, they are significant minority, and then Bomi, significant minority, Bapolu, they are majority, and Lofa, significant minority, all around. So that is something that is good for us to know. It doesn't need to be hidden. Now, comparing that to tribalism is the loyalty you have to your tribe. And that can be positive or negative. I agree with the writer who claims that it is good. Garland, I'm here. Okay, so I'm sorry. So it is good for us to know that. You understand that one can have loyalty to his tribe, to his heritage. That is positive. That you, if, for example, if you have learned and you are a writer, maybe you want to go like personally, I've been considering going to my hometown and maybe go around to write little stories about the rivers, nearby grave sites, old towns, new towns, and other things, just to put something out there.
So that's the positive.
Yeah, that is the positive side. Now, when the negative is what. A guy said extreme tribalism. I would prefer to call that acute tribalism. When the loyalty to your tribe is extreme, allegiance to your tribe is way beyond, and to the extent that you subordinate the national interest and national concern to your tribal loyalty, or subordinate common good, common interest to tribal loyalty, then it becomes dangerous. It can be violent and it can lead to war.
Give me examples.
Well, the example set was probably, the easiest example is Islamic extremists.
I mean, in Liberia.
In Liberia, well, Dennis, I have a good answer for that. And it's really good because you and I discussed this probably 2 days ago. It did appear as though that was going to be a difficult thing. I thought about that and did some more reading, and I came up with a very easy formula. I really think tribalism is good, it's positive, only as long as it is good. But when it is negative or it is extreme, it's dangerous and violent. Now, how do you measure that? Of course, in Liberia, our national leaders, the decision makers, the policy makers do not have interest in allocating funds for research, for studies, so that this subject can be studied and can be explored. But I would say from a layman view, and I think it's a strong argument, that whenever the argument or the debate of tribalism becomes national, when there is a public outcry, when it becomes a national subject of debate, when it's in the news, to me, then that is a breaking point. That needs to claim our attention, even if it is not. If there is something, to me, this is a way of measuring it, short of having studies and research work that will clearly, demarcate lines and other things. But to me, this is.
Let me go to Nancy to give me some examples of negative tribalism in Liberia, if I may say? When does tribalism become bad?
Well, I would certainly agree with James there when he says when it goes to the extreme. And Liberia and Africa is not an exception to the extreme that we're talking about. The civil war that just went on in Liberia, when warlords tell their child soldiers to open up women's stomach and take off fetuses because they belong to another tribe to decrease the fighting force, that is even worse than tribalism. That's more you would call barbaric tribalism. But we should be concerned about how these sort of practices or ideas sings in our societies, you know, and these are dark histories that I think we should talk about. Those are some of the dark sides of it. I absolutely agree when you embrace the culture, values, beliefs of your ethnic group. I mean, I love to listen to Pella's song. I love to listen to Vi's song. I enjoy them than any other tribe's songs, but it doesn't mean I should castigate other tribes because they don't sound like Pele, Bassa, or Vi's songs. It doesn't mean I should go to the extent of voting for a Pele man because he's Pele, no matter that he doesn't have the agenda to move the country, right? And these are things that when we start to realize and notice in our societies, we can put a real and stop on them. We talked about the civil war that went on in Liberia. Historically, we know where it came from with respect to the American Liberians that came. Now we're talking about June 7 demonstration, and I'm seeing people putting up there Congo against indigenous. That is very, very dangerous. That is very dangerous. So we're kind of rooting up this whole issue of indigenous versus American Liberian. The American Liberians would not have called them a tribe, but there was another ethnic group that came in Liberia, and that practice of suppressing indigenous Liberian was the belief that they were better than them. Similar things is happening in other parts of the world. In Canada, we have the Europeans that came and took over the Native Americans because they thought they were trying to civilize them. So I totally agree with James when he says, when we go to that extreme, it becomes a problem. But we should be able to name the extreme and give examples of those extremes. And anybody listening to this show today, I would say to them, it is the worst uncivilized, barbaric thing that can happen in a country when it goes to the extreme.
Mr. Sondah, going to the extreme, I don't know if you're aware of a few examples in Liberia going to the extreme, but we're talking about this tribal loyalty and then going to the extreme. We are all happy to identify with our own ethnic groups. Where do we draw this line between being loyal to your ethnic group and going to the extreme, or preferring yours above other ethnic group? Where is that line? Is it because all the time I speak or crown, so I'm tribalistic, or the only thing I listen to is crown music? So where do we draw this line?
All right, thank you. What we discussed today, we're talking about ethnicity. We proud Pella people, we are proud Sapo people, we Kru. There were days in Liberia you could not even mention about your tribal identity. Mm-hmm. So when we put this into perspective and look at the 1800s with the arrival of the American Liberians, and if you do a study of their life in this country in servitude, the exact same thing that was had here on them was supplanted in Liberia. So there were times that I could not even speak my dialect, even if I were in school. I grew up in Painesville. Painesville was the bastion of American Liberians' existence, one of it. And so those people who were indigenous Liberians, as they called them, and their tribe, they made them to feel ashamed. So most of our colleagues that we grew up with could not even speak their vernacular because it was country. All right, so, and this existed for over a century until maybe in most recent time, within the 1980s, the coming of the military and other things that happened, and the consciousness started to come up with amongst people. So proud Pele-speaking people, and some of us have traveled and went to other countries. I stayed in Ghana for 10 years, like others, some of you are here, and they speak their local vernacular, even at public places. That's how they communicate. And when you see that, then you try to appreciate what you have, right? So, but what we draw the line is when we begin to exploit the situation. And a classic example in Liberia is in the most recent time. Senator Milton Teji of Sano County, he's a crew, and the one who he went against the challenge was a Sapo guy, who is Mambutu Yipa. Senator Teji had been superintendent of Sino. And what did he do? He rallied his crew people against Sapo man, and he took advantage of that. But what he has done to that county is that he has, in a way, affected the harmony that existed between these people. Even though they are a majority group there, the politics of the day should be based on the issues. And you can't try to, as a way, try to project yourself because you from the majority tribe, therefore you are. You should be elected based on your platform and what you can do for your people, instead of trying to, as it were, foment hatred amongst your people. And that has come, even in the 1980s, up to when the military came to power, and there was an attempt to, as it were, metamorphose into the civilian government, which they did with all of the controversies that came along. Just within that 10-year span, anybody who was of Crown origin took themselves to be above the law. My mom, Pinzo Market in Pinzo, or right around the LBS. My mother, they are one of those people. She was part of the women that started our market, but they were forced to have a Crown lady to be the president of the Marketing Association simply because she was Crown, right? And so those are things, and these are things we know. When the war went out of hand, people became targeted. They were targeted, even those that were loyal to the president of the day. They went after them simply because they were not of that ethnic origin. So when we start to behave like that, we cross the line. The simple thing here is to accept the reality that this person is this and you are that. And if we have a piece of job to do, let's do this job on the basis of our expertise.
Absolutely.
That's why it's done.
All this is focused on Liberia. We are discussing ethnicity, politics, and governance. My guests is Nancy Reeves from Toronto, Canada, James Larsah from Baltimore, and Samuel Sondah from Oakley, California. Before we delve more into this whole idea of politics and ethnicity, sometimes we say people are voting on tribal lines. Before we go into that, let's look at our history. For instance, our map. And I'm going to show you the map of Liberia and how I learned which tribe or which ethnic group came from where. So right there, what you see ethnic, you see the counties, right? So when we went to grade school, what we studied is in let's say Maryland, we'll say Gribble. In Grangida, we'll say Crown. Sino, we'll say Crew. Or Nimba, we'll say Mano and Guillaume, or the Ma and the Dan. Bombing, and so on and so forth. Bong, Pele. What does this do? Because this, to me, this is like saying assigning counties, tribes, or ethnic groups to counties. So in my view, it makes the minority ethnic groups invisible. What's your take? Let's start with you, Mr. Larsah.
Well, to be frank with you, the drawing of boundaries or the concept of map did not exist with our ancestors way back. So that came as a result of the arrival of the colonialists. And so that is a colonial idea. Not so much that it is bad, but it did really introduce something new among our people. So I understand the rationale for that was to apparently over time the Westerners had observed that there was very strong tribal identity and tribal loyalty among the people. So trying to seek a way to unify the people. And in order to do that was to regroup them by defining certain boundaries that will group certain people among other people who will be viewed as coming from different tribal groups. So that was the rationale, and whether that was good or not is hard to judge it, but it hasn't really proven to be the best yet, because as a result, in fact, when we hear of tribal conflicts around, is often about one tribal group in the same geographic locality in conflict with another tribal group. It's hard to say whether if in fact they were separated by boundaries, whether that conflict wouldn't exist. But I would think that that is the understanding associated.
Right. So Mr. Sondah, so what does ethnic group have to do with the country of origin, if I may put it that way? Because like for you, Pele, you know, people, by the time you say Bon County, by default, or is synonymous to Pele. Is that true? Is that a way to look at it?
Well, that could be one way, but another way, you know, these groups, these tribal groups, Liberian history and geography, some of them identify under one group, like they have the Kwa group, right? They have the male group. I believe another one will be the Mende. And with this distinction among them that qualify under this group, there's some similarity. And for us from the Bon County side, we got some affinity with people in Lofa County, all right? And even in Bumi and Cape Mount, the black people, so most of them speak Pele, and as well as the Ebola people, the Lama people, they do. So these things were done for administrative purposes, I believe. And they were done and so that people can be able to have control on, the government can have control on the level of power. I believe that what happened. And the intent to me, it was good, even though these people identify within a particular locality, but the intent and purpose is to make things to work in a way that the government will function. But that said, with this group identifying under one subgroup shows how, in spite of the demarcation, how they are the same people. You go to southeastern Liberia, you have Sondah County, you have Maryland, you have Grand Cru, you have Grand Jide. Those people, there are so many things that are common to them. Those people form part of the problem. You know, so those
Mr. Sondah, let's look at Grand Cru, for instance. The Gribbles and the Cru lived there originally, and the Gribble might probably are in majority. So if you say Grand Cru equals Cru, or you put the Cru there without mentioning Gribble, how does that play in? I saw that in Nimba County, for instance, when you draw the map of Nimba and say Nimba County, Mano and Guillaume. You don't mention Crown, you don't mention Mandingo, you don't mention Pele, you don't mention the Wee people. Does that help to discriminate and segregate the people or promote tribalism? Or take one group higher than the other?
No, I don't think those are intentional things. I think the intent, one of the reasons behind those will be because they are kind of minority over there. You know, I mean, to be fair to you, to everybody listening, we got Mandingos, we got Bassa people, and we have Nimba people, and even some Loba people, people from Lofa involved, but they are minority group. So, and of course, for academics and some of the other reasons, people tend to, you know, as it were, talk more about the most dominant group. But I don't think it is intentional. It has any intent to look down on the other people or as a way to take advantage of them. I mean, these are realities. They are part of that place. But you have to be very careful. Like within our community, people will come and make statements sometimes that would suggest that a particular group does not matter. So it depends on the person in authority to be able to send that message. You remember when John McCain was campaigning, and at one of his campaign rallies, this lady stood up and said Obama was not an American citizen. And John McCain rebuked her and said he's a fine American, he's supposed to be part of us, right? We should not get to a point where our backs on the wall that we saw in the 1990s, when President Doe summoned the Mandingos to City Hall and told them, you are also Liberian. Therefore, you have the right to exercise any rights in this country as a Liberian. Try to urge them on as a way to take advantage or to defend themselves or to take side in the war. We should not get to that point. Those of us in leadership must always be conscious of these situations in our community and try to address them along that line. Because they are part and parcel of our origin, our history. You know, our history was dominated by the American Liberians. And when they came, their purpose was to continue to rule us. And from what we see after 171 years, you know that our country is underdeveloped. Everything about it, if you look at the statistics, it shows that we do not meet the benchmark that is set by the international community in education, healthcare, even infrastructure development. Where did that come from? It was because of consciously idea, people feeling that if we expose these people who are in the majority to civility of life, then our authority will be questioned. So let's continue to keep them in the mode they are until, you know, whatever will happen. And of course, we know what happened. This is where we are today.
Janice, I know you're going to call on Professor Reeves, but let me just say this: the question about why certain groups may not be easily referenced in the context of conversation.
And what's the impact has been when they are not referenced like that?
Well, that for me, it all depends. If it is an ordinary man, Joe Blow in the street talking, I don't think that should have impact. But if it is as part of scholarly work or any policy material, then of course that will be that should be seriously looked at. But the reason I think that is the case is because, for example, for the census, you have a threshold requirement. If, for example, you go to River G, for now the census say River G has 100% global people, which is true. That does not mean there are not Pela people and other things. In Maryland, the global people are 99% and Pela people are 1%. That does not mean there are not Kru or Bassa people there, but they don't meet the threshold to be referenced. Other than that, you have to have a lot of footnotes to explain and account for every, you know, bit and piece in the data.
Okay. So what else, Nancy, what else do we look at has anything? I was thinking that way of assigning ethnic groups to county contributed towards the way we look at ethnic group. But let me ask you this. How do we identify who come from a particular county? Is it by their ethnic group or the place of birth or what?
Well, that's what we've had. I mean, the minute you mention Bon County today, you would think of Pela people. You mentioned Grand Bassa County, you would think of Bassa people, you know, because majority of the people settled there. You know, many centuries ago, like people came from all over the northern part of Africa and elsewhere, even down to Central Africa, and settled in Liberia, different tribes. You know, the Mandingo people came a lot from Guinea. So I'm even surprised to hear that yesterday Samuel Doe will call it like the Mandingo people and say, you are Liberians. But because of this tribalistic negativity that we've had in us for ever so long, if you go back to the history of Liberia, Mandingo people have always been there. You know, so people migrate all over in Africa and settle into places. But when majority of people settle in a specific place, of course, they own that as their places. And that's how I just know much about the last 3 counties that were put in place. As you read the history of Liberia, a lot of Krus and Bassa people and things settle in Monrovia. That's why you have Newtown, which I think a lot of relatives of Kru people settled in there because they were mostly fishermen and sailors and whatnot. But I keep hearing the majority here, which is absolutely right. When majority of people migrate to a certain place and they settle there, they make it their homes. Okay. And that's what happened. Look, I go back to Canada because this is my, you know, other country here. the French and people that settled in Canada after the colonization of the Aboriginal or indigenous people, a lot of them settled in Quebec, Montreal. Any of you who come down to Canada, you see that a lot of French people in Quebec, Montreal. There are pockets of French people in other parts of Canada, but they mostly settled in Quebec and Montreal. Now, does it mean that other people or other Canadians who settle in Montreal or Quebec should not live there? Does it mean when an uprising happens, you should go and start to attack the other people because you find them to be different? That doesn't make sense, right? It just shows that we have this ingrained nature of hatred and animosity towards one another that we need to deal with.
Where does that come from?
To make this country, Liberia, a better place.
And where does that mindset come from, in your view?
The hatred and animosity? Oh, it came from the I mean, if you look at the history of Africa, not that we didn't have violence, and any of the other panelists can correct me, we did have violence in Africa. Of course, when the Europeans came and went on with slavery, took all people and brought back American Liberians, they brought a lot of violence. They brought a lot of violence into Liberia, and history can attest to that. So of course, you heard when Samuel Doe took over, people were dancing in the street and saying Congo woman born role, Native woman born soldier. But those are lessons that we should learn and learn to never have them repeated. Unfortunately, we're still having them repeated. And I go back to this June 7 march, when I see indigenous against Congo, I'm saying, where in the world are we going? Where are we heading to? Have we not learned our lesson? So we need to deconstruct our minds.
Thank you.
We are all Liberians and learn to live together, period.
Precisely. We have a caller on the line. Caller, your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Christopher Tobasi. I'm calling from Fargo, North Dakota.
Christopher, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Your question or comment?
I think I'll just make a quick comment. I want to say thank you to the guests. I mean, we are learning a lot from them. But Mr. Dennis, I think we as Liberians need to have an honest conversation.
Yeah.
We need to start brushing some of these things. For so long, we have been brushing some of these things, putting them on the rug, and nobody want to talk about it. Yeah. Every time you try to bring it up, people try to look at you as bad or different, you know. But we got to have these conversations. You know, there's nothing wrong. We're all sitting down across the table and talking. Whether you're Martinko, whether you're crying, you're Pele, you're American Liberian, wherever you come from, wherever it is, let's sit down and let's talk. Yes. I mean, feelings will be hurt, but I think there should be no fear of retaliation or whatsoever. Just listen to the people. Let people talk. I think that's some of the things we need to start doing in Liberia instead of, you know, when people want to talk, people, shut up, don't turn it on. You know, you can't say this. You know, so when will we be allowed to speak?
And we give.
That we've been through. I'm talking about.
We're giving you the opportunity here and Focus on Liberia to talk that. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Let's say for example, right? Because then we have the space. Let the Congo people or the American Liberians should be free to talk about their history. Whenever that they want to write or talk, let it go ahead and talk about it. We too should be allowed the same. Some of our people that live within those days, they want to write or whatever they want to say. Let them do it. Let them be free to do it. Instead of people saying, don't talk.
Right.
I'm taking you, and that's the best way to handle it. I think that's the wrong way to handle it. And in America here.
Thank you, Chris. Chris, just wrap up your talk. There's another call coming in.
Yeah, just to be quick on the issue of tribalism and this and that. I think being, if somebody call you a tribalist or somebody say you believe in tribalism or whatsoever, it's not a bad thing. It's the way in which we go about it. But you see the Italian American, you see
Thank
the
you.
Germans.
Hello, Dennis, Mr. John.
Do not try to just stigmatize other people, and we should allow people to enjoy their craft, speak their talent. Don't try to point finger at them and say, oh, that the country and they did. No, they're not evil.
Okay.
So I want to say thank you, and thank you to our guests, for educating us all.
Thank you. And to my panelists, one of the things that people don't normally talk about is the first of all, is the American Liberian or Congo, is that an ethnic group? Yes or no?
It should qualify as an ethnic group. It should qualify. And Mr. Host, let me just add that the last caller to say that while tribalism can be good, it is often really bad. And it has to be noted. Yeah, it can be bad, and it is often really bad. Like we said, there should be a threshold. If people are calling you a tribalist, and that is persistent and getting wider in terms of scope, then of course it's a measure, it's an indicator that you're getting on the other side. It's not.
And we'll come to that really, because sometimes the charge tribalism is being thrown around. But my question to you was, hold on, Colum. My question now is, one of the things that we need to talk about is the idea of the American Liberian. Sometimes it becomes a taboo when you call someone, or you point. It's easy to call somebody or to identify somebody as a Peleman, Gribble Crew, Crown, Day, etc. But when you identify someone has an American Liberian or Congo, it's kind of not politically correct. I don't know if any of you have had such experience. That, oh no,
I really think it's an orchestration. There is a certain interest in the country that is vested in an environment in which ordinary people do not value their background. Like Brother Sondah was saying way back, it was not a pride or a shame to be identified with a given tribal background. So that tendency has not gone away completely. And to be frank, that does seem to be quite profitable for certain interests in the country, because they feel that when people are aware, which is a consciousness, that we need to be conscious of who. Like for example, Dennis, go on the internet, go look for the census. You wouldn't find the census data. People are really interested in hiding the number. Go for the National Election Commission website and try to find the data. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know how many people live here, this and that. I don't think it's by accident. I think it's by orchestration by a small group of very corrupt-minded people. That's how I feel about that.
Yeah. So the idea of Congo or American Liberian, sometimes people feel that you are the one, you being troubled or you being segregative. If you identify someone as American Liberian, have you had that experience?
I personally, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Sondah.
Oh, thank you. Look, here's the thing. The caller that just left said we should talk.
You're right. Let's talk.
No, I'm not talking about us as panelists. I'm talking about as a people. There's leadership lacking in this. And until the reason why they find it derogatory now, or probably will question it, is because of the power shift. Okay? In the 70s up to 1980, it was not a problem. They used that heavily. The American Liberians or Congo, whatever you call them, they institutionalized everything to the effect that if you wanted to validate yourselves, even if you were indigenous of indigenous stock, you had to assume their name. Okay, you take a name, assume a given name before you could be recognized, even if you had the education. Those are part of our history. To the way those things affect us for the good or for the bad, it is expedient that we have this discussion. We need leadership on these kinds of issues. All right. So the question about I calling somebody a Congo today, they will feel a little bit degraded. Of course, I understand that because of the shift and also because of the consciousness and awareness that exists in the permeates the Liberian society today. Years ago, the predominant group of Liberia that stays in these United States and foreign parts were American Liberians. Today, you have people from all walks of life. I'm part of a family that came through Ghana from Maryland County, and we're here in the United States. And some of them haven't been to Monrovia and see what life was like there. So you have a preponderance of our people living in foreign parts of indigenous stock today. So if someone is feeling a little bit, bad that you created that destination. Of course, I understand that. But there ought to be leadership. All right. The Kagames of the world are transforming their country today, even though he started a guerrilla war, he may be a benevolent dictator, are trying to shape their country for the better and get them ready for the future. The guy who was ran out of Gambia, he came, he was a military officer in Liberia, he went to stage a coup. If you read the history of Gambia, Gambia was nothing until Jammeh took over. He transformed them, even to his credit, up to the time he left. He brought transformation. And that's what we want. If we will have transformation in our country, then these are the things we need to address. All right? And then we need to have a leader who understands the issue. The last 12 years has been one of the worst years in our political history, the wasted year, never used, because we went through a civil war and there was an opportunity to bring the country together. And what happened? Corruption was institutionalized.
Hold that thought. Let me get a caller in on the line. Caller, your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, my name is Rose Joy. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing excellent. Go ahead, Rose. Your Rose Joy. Your comments or question?
Yeah. So before I say anything, I want to say having people, fellow people on this platform today is not a mistake. It's not a coincidence. Because when I can record, when I was growing up, and if you come in a gathering and say you're a teller, people look down on you. So these people are the kindest people in our country. So you having them on here today is a good thing, you know.
Yeah.
So I want to speak on Charleston when it comes to the voting aspect of Liberia.
Okay.
That's one thing that we really are backwards in. We are not teaching our people how to vote because of issues. Our people just know how to vote because I'm from Nema County, so I'm going to vote this man because he's from Nema County. And if he can have the weirdest thing, if he can have nothing on his platform, they will go and vote for him.
Yeah.
So in a public manner, I really want us to really, there's a good topic and it needs to be talked about, like the other party said. We need to really find a way to be able to go into Liberia and teach our people on issues, on why should you vote for someone? Why is it necessary for you to go and put your body for this person? Not because this person is from this Congo or this person is crew and you crew or this person from this county you from. That is not the reason why you should vote someone. So because of this, our country has suffered so much and we are so backwards. And if we don't, this is one of the main issues in the country. And our people may overlook this issue, but it's a big issue in the country. So again, thank you to Miss Nancy Reeves. You have said it all on this platform. And after this, I hope, look forward to talking to you more and connecting with you on some issues. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rose Joy. So that brings us to another topic on voting on travel lines or campaigning on travel lines. Let's say Mr. Sondah goes back to Liberia, he wants to run as president. Definitely he's going to go among the Pella people and sell his platform first. What is this voting on travel lines or campaigning on travel lines or doing our politics on travel lines? Is it wrongly tagged or really people are doing that? And if yes, how do we determine that? How do we know?
Okay, Dennis, first of all, if you look at Liberia demographic only, even though Pella people will be the predominant group, it's 20%. There's not one tribe in Liberia can win the presidency, not even two. So you need other people to coalesce around an idea and project your idea to have a national appeal. And that's one of the things I really thank God for Liberia, because we have multi-ethnic group that exists. And any attempt by one to assist where to dominate the other people, you'll be exposed. I think we experienced that in the 1980s, and of course, we're getting close to looking at that again. So, but these things have to be looked at in context. We'll have to put it into perspective. When the American Liberians came, the conscious effort they did was to suppress the indigenous people. And so those of us, our predecessors, our brother, the older brothers and older sisters, who made it to get some exposure, some education, that was a feat that must be celebrated in your quarter, in your town, and in your city. So that is part of our Liberian political heritage. We can't shy away from that. But the good part is to be aware that the fact that you're a parliament, you're president, it does not make you to be the lord over everyone, and as it were, all parliament people should have a position. As a matter of fact, there should be some consciousness. Whoever takes over that country, the way our social setting is structured, one man government is helping all the family people. Right. So if you appoint James as Minister of Justice, you're not going to send James' wife to Minister of Planning. You know, you're not going to do that. You can't do that. It's not expedient. These are the things we witnessed over the last 12 years.
So Mr. Sondah, before I bring in a caller, is voting on tribal lines or company of tribal line, that charge is being thrown around during most elections. Is that a myth or is it happening for real?
It happens, but it does not have, it happens. But what I'm saying, it does not give you the right to lord it over other people in a way that it will be a disadvantage to the other people. Because as well, you as a person, even though you're, yes. So
let me bring a caller in before James. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
My name is Kevin Hassan. I'm calling from Maryland.
Kelvin Hassan?
Yes, Hassan.
Kevin, your comments or question?
My comment and then I'll follow with a question. I want to tell you guys thank you for you guys on this panel. You guys are showing a face of Liberia because, first of all, I grew up in Liberia, but I was born in Sierra Leone, and my parents, we all from Sierra Leone. But what I see on social media, it's not the Liberia that I grew up in, not the Liberia that I know. And to see 4 people on this panel are very intelligent, not hearing all those abusive things that make me feel so sad about Liberia. You guys lift my spirit talking to the issue and looking at the issue. You guys need to come on board to show the face of Liberia, because the face of Liberia is different on the internet, except and you can get the Mr. Gilman show, which is professional. A lot of shows, they abuse, they say things, they talk about stories that are not true. Nobody one of your panelists said there's a missed opportunity on the last and 12 years for Liberia to come together. And people are now looking at that. It's a missed opportunity for Liberia to come together the last 12 years. So we need more of you guys to come up. And my question is, how can Liberia come together? Because what I'm saying, especially going to this protest, how can Liberia stop the hate that is dwelling in that country right now? How can Liberia stop the hate and go back to the face of Liberia?
Thank you, Kevin. Point well taken. Excellent. And we'll continue to thanks also for your comments and your remarks that this is professional. We try our best to keep it real.
Can I respond to him briefly, Mr. Host, if you don't mind?
Oh, okay. Let's go.
I just want to let the caller know that we all share the sentiment that he's expressing. We all also have to be aware that today is a different day as compared to many years ago. You have online social media, you have Facebook Live. So what that means is that has made every individual on the face of the planet an immediate celebrity in his own right. Has given that individual immediate radio station and also immediate television station. So you have all of that without even you don't need to have $20 to have television station and radio station. So everybody is speaking now. those other people should not have to be given credence. And we cannot. I read a newspaper from years back, a couple of years back, and it said, for example, about 65% of youth in the southeastern region of Liberia are illiterate. I think that data might be true in that case, but it might also be true for the entire nation. People are not informed, and they have a very powerful cell phone in their hands, and they're abusing it. So it's difficult to stop them, but we shouldn't give them credence. That's just it.
Right. Okay, that's good, and that's why we encourage our audience and people around the world to keep your diet set right here on Focus on Liberia, where we educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Let's go on our Facebook for some comments. Ben Naman is giving us thumb up. You see, everything is about balance and equality of the public good. Hamilton is saying that this idea that tribalism is good, he said that's an error. Let me read his comment. The argument that tribalism is not a bad practice is erroneous. Tribalism is when people or politicians use identity politics to promote narrow tribal interests.
Again,
Professor Reeves, your comments. He said this is wrong. Tribalism is all bad.
Well, I mean, tribalism, as we've talked about, you know, when the way it's practiced, especially in the African context, I mean, look at what happened in Rwanda. Look at what happened in Rwanda with the Hutu and Tutsi. Look where almost 1 million people were slaughtered to death. And we can't even go too far into why it happened and whatsoever. But come right back in our backyard in Liberia. So a lot of the negativity with respect to tribalism, a lot of things with respect to tribalism are very negative. Whether it's ethnic war, it's tribal war, it's warlord who wants things done. But there's just nothing about embracing the cultural values and beliefs of one's tribe. And I can tell you, I love the Pele tribe. Is that a sin? Is that a crime? No. I love the Vai tribe. My mother is Vai. My dad is Pele. I love that. But does it mean I should feel and think that the Pele or Vai tribe is better than the crew of other tribes? No. When I'm in the position of power, now this is where the problem comes. When we find ourselves in position of power and we misuse the position of power to satisfy our groups. So if I leave from here and get to Liberia and become somebody, and I only look to Bonkante and the Pele people, that's the wrong way of using my tribal or ethnic affiliation.
But Professor Ray, let's look at it this way. Here, someone said most of our institutions are fillers. Okay, political parties are just faces, and pressure groups, they don't exist. People move from party to party depending on who's in power. So the only viable group or organization is the ethnic group. So right now, if I want support, if I want somebody to back me up, instead of going to a political party that keeps changing depending on who's the face of it, I go to my ethnic group and that becomes my political base. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, but because people who flock into ethnic group do not understand political agendas. Because if you understand, as so someone said it on the panel here, if you understand the political agenda of the party, whether UP or CDC or whosoever, and what they have to do for Liberia, you won't be voting on the lines of tribal groups. You will be voting on the lines of what they have to offer a country. That's what we'll be looking at. But because we don't understand in the African, in a lot of, I don't know in Liberia if they even talk about political ideology. I know when Opon was running, I asked someone for his political agenda and I never saw it. Mm-hmm. And today we're complaining, but we don't ask for it. And I like what the other caller said, educate people. But because we have so much poverty, we have so much social issues with education, Liberia is a post-war country with so much mental health problems that we have not even resolved. You know, people don't even have food to eat. tell me, how will you explain to them about political ideology? They've been looking at food to eat, so you gave them some t-shirts and rice to eat. Definitely, they will vote for you. So it doesn't only have to do with tribal line. It has to do with poverty and other severe social issues that we are dealing with.
Hey, Dennis, you want me to come in?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think the question you asked about voting for a given candidate because he shares common tribal heritage with you, I think that's mostly wrong, especially when.
Your thought. Not only that they share that ethnic group, but so you all have shared values, and so let's say if I'm from Sukurumu in Lofa County, and you I believe that you're going to build a road there. So why don't I? If I vote for you, it's not just tribal line, but we have shared values and shared problems that I think that you can solve.
Yeah, exactly. So then that would transcend the tribal attribute of that. So if we are to be voting for leaders, we should be voting for them for what the expectations are, for what they should be doing. It's not because of how they are related to us or not. So in fact, in the case of Liberia, the case can be made fairly that Liberians really, generally, nationally, they don't vote on tribal line because if that were the case, then most of our presidents, the Peda people are about 26%, and either we're going to have, and the Bassa people about 13%, we're going to have a Peda president or Bassa president.
Absolutely.
That has not even happened. People who are presidents often come from the minority group. So Liberians don't. But if you take it and confine that to a specific given local geography, then that will be strong. Say, for example, you go in Sano County, for example, and check the last election, say we are Sano or Grand Cru. What was the percentage of victory there? If it is 97, 89, and then you go to Bong County, his victory is 39, 37. And you take another pyramid from Bong who ran on the ticket, who got less than 1% or just 1%, then you can see a trend that certain people are voting much stronger on tribal line than others. Whether that is bad or not, that would be another thing by which we can establish that fact.
And that leads to the next issue of thinking that these ethnic groups are monolithic, okay? That all of them will act the same way. So, Mr. Sondah, I don't think the ethnic groups are monolithic or they're going to vote in one fashion. If they are voting, let's say, it could be coincidence, but they are voting on various issues. So even if it happens that majority of the people vote for Prince Johnson from Nimba County, it still doesn't mean that all of them have the same reason or that there is still not a sizable portion that are voting against him. So this whole idea that the ethnic groups are monolithic and they're going to act the same way, vote in one single file, what do you think about that?
Well, I think, Brother James, he just told you that it's not established within our body politics about people voting along those tribal lines, but there are some unique situations in our body politics. And, you know, I don't, maybe the name is escaping, but one famous American politician said all politics are local.
Right.
Okay? So that said, if somebody comes from a particular region and garner a lot of votes from there, it's a demonstration that your people prefer you to be the person. Well, like I already said, what I'm happy about is that one tribal group cannot go along over the finish line unless you get the support of the other group. As it stands, we have a president from southeastern Liberia, where he was overwhelmingly voted by other people. So that's the trend, and we hope that it remains that way. But what I believe that we should be looking for leaders that are conscious about what our country needs. They will be ready to direct the country in a direction that what Toba used to call the wholesome functioning society. We are at a place where the voters, electors are being taken advantage of. Like our sister just mentioned, because of the poverty, even though the poverty is there as a result of the war and other things, but this is also entrenched in our political history from the 1800s. In fact, there were times that even indigenous Liberians would not vote.
Right.
All right. So these are things that have happened and that are part of our political history that need to be addressed. And who needs to take that? We need leadership on that. until we can find somebody who understands the situation of our country, that this country was encroached, a form of land grab by the settlers. And what they do, establish themselves along the coast and build homes along the seacoast because it was luxury to live there. They could not afford it in the United States. So they went and found somewhere that they could establish themselves and indulge and neglect the rest of the people and manipulate them and deny them some of the basic rights, deny them education, health. Today, whenever I visit my village, I come home to the United States, I come home traumatized because for the many years that my parents took me up there for vacation, the roads are still the same. I was born in the 60s, so just do the math, my brother. So these are things that they are not today's situation. Right. So this is why the government of the day has to be sensitive and conscious about the prevailing situation and be able to create a big tent, a big tent that Liberians will converge at and say, look, gentlemen, this is our problem. How can we address it? Our problem is beyond voting. Voting, these are requirements. When time comes for us to vote, we'll vote, and don't be surprised they will vote just anybody. But if our people are educated and they have the requisite exposure that we need as a people, as a country, some of these things will be addressed. We have to go to the depth of this thing. You know, Sondah goes to Bond County. There are some Pele guys that ran, they went to Bond County, they did not even gel with the people. They did not because they were Pele, they came, they did not succeed. So the voters, even though they may be illiterate, some of them, they know what they want, but they're looking for things.
And that's what I think. I think Liberians have not been given credit enough. And most of the time we hear that people are just voting because of their ethnic group. But let me come to you, Professor Reeves. Dave Jai is asking on Facebook, how do you account for poverty and poor leadership as the primary source of the division and animosity in Liberia?
Well, of course, when a person is hungry and angry, what are you talking about? You know, I mean, when someone in their own home, the place they call their home, get up in the morning and can't find food to eat, can't get food to eat. I have brothers and sisters in Liberia that tells me people go to bed after soaking gari to eat. When over 80% of people in the country are unemployed, you know, you're just walking around and you have no source of living, nothing to sustain yourself, nothing to empower you. You become very helpless and hopeless. And if anyone comes and say, vote for me, I will give you a bag of rice, of course, those people will do that. Poverty is a part of it, right? And we're looking at education as being another part of it. What is the literacy rate in Liberia? Right? We got a large literacy rate. The war have taken us behind. Once upon a time, we know that almost all the Liberian students fail the national exam. When we were in high school, we could think about failing one subject. This time, almost the whole country failed. So Liberia has a substantial social issue when it comes to poverty, when it comes to mental health. Up to this day, as we speak, a lot of those children who are war soldiers have not had good mental health resources to better themselves. Teachers who are teaching have not even had one counseling, and they're sitting in classrooms and you expect them to perform well, right? People get up in the morning, they have no food to eat. All of these are issues that play on the voter's mind. So they can be easily persuaded to vote for someone. And the election, as Sondah said, was wonderful. I mean, I was listening to it and the poll won from different, counties, right? But so we know that Liberians did not just vote based on tribal line, but then what other reason for why they voted?
Right.
What other reason? Was it because they had the hope in the upon that he was coming to make changes that the other president, Ellen, did not do?
Right.
Was it because of that?
But our today politics, and we'll come to that, today politics look like everything we see about Judge Weah now, people are accusing him of tribalism. But before we delve into that and look at our different administrations, which of them were practicing tribalism or more, James, so if you agree with the question that Dave asked and what Nancy's response, it's like the whole idea of ethnicity or tribalism is just a low-hanging fruit or politicians are exploiting that to convince voters, or you also see that voters who are voting for different reasons, mainly because they are hungry or they don't understand the issue. But we are thinking that is tribalism. Is the whole issue of tribalism being exploited by politicians or used as low-hanging fruits for those who didn't win?
Well, Dennis, I'm sorry to say, but I have to say that I do believe that while at the national level, it is fair to say that the election result was not based on tribalism. It is fair to say that in certain segments of the country, it was pure tribalism. Like I said, man, I don't see how possibly President Weah can win by 97%, 90%, 92%, 89% in all southeastern counties. Right. And win in Bond County with just 30% or 39%. Right. What that tells me is that while nationally the tribalistic character does not manifest enough, if you dissect the various geographic segments, localities, there will be strong evidence that certainly people voted along tribal lines.
Okay. Let me call you to that. When you say Southeast, first of all, it's not an ethnic group. So
it's an ethnic group. It's Kwa.
So if Crown people, for instance, if Crown people, for instance, vote for George Weah, is that voting on tribal line?
It's voting on ethnic line.
But they are not of the same. Is Crown and Crew? They're not the same.
They are the same ethnic group.
So if Gribble people vote for Josh Weah, it means they are voting on the ethnic line.
No. If Gribble people vote for George Weah by 90%, 95%, and other tribes are voting for him and he's winning them there by 49%, 40%, you know, the plurality of votes, you can see the difference that people in the southeastern region are voting for a Crew man and ethnic southeastern man by 85, 90, 92%, whereas the other tribes are equally voting for him and he's winning, but he's winning by far significant lesser margins.
And I will come to you for that, because I come from the Southeast, and what I saw is most of those counties, especially for the past 12 years, face the same issue. For instance, roads. Okay, the place was cut off from the rest of the country because of the bad road. So all of them had a burning issue of roads or being neglected or not being very favored in the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government. So if there's anybody coming, don't you think that they will all coalesce around that person so that they can solve their problem? But let me go to you, Mr. Sondah, for your view on the Southeastern vote being equal to voting on ethnic lines.
In the spirit of full disclosure, let me let you, my wife is from Southeastern Liberia. I'm married to a global woman from the Flibo end. So they are my in-laws. She's from that part of the country. I want to speak to that. Now, I'm not sure we can use this election in Liberia as a barometer for the practice of tribalism. In these United States, there are strongholds of the Democratic Party, there are strongholds of the Republican Party, and there are some of these strongholds that they don't even campaign in because they know it's show for them. So they don't. In fact, one of the things that cost them the elections, because I think Hillary Clinton did not really do a lot of work in Wisconsin, and so she lost that area. So that said, and given the level of exposure some of us, I'm of the opinion that not a single tribe can get to the presidency with the votes, given our present demographic outlook, right? So it's obvious that because George Weah comes from that end, obviously people will support him. And I don't want to describe that in that light because of the way our politics will play our politics. But if it gets to a point where, for instance, you wanted to discuss that, where you see in the government, the speaker is from Southeastern Liberia, the president pro tem is from the Southeastern Liberia. So the three branches of government come from that. So that is where I have a problem, right? So and then it also projects some lack of sensitivity in the decision-making process. If we do these things, we have people make a statement that tend to suggest that this is what's been played. If we had a strong candidate with national appeal from, say, Basso County, like Charles Broskin won in Basso. So should we say that the Basilians are like that? You know, there were candidates in the first round that had because Joseph Walker is a loafer. So those are the things that's the trend of our vote in our country. But that said, that one county or the particular sector does not suggest that you become the head. You need the other people. So when you get there, that's where leadership comes in. Whether you're a Pele guy or you Basso or Global, you get a hem. When you start to divide a national cake, it is based on region and sensitivity. And of course, I don't fault Mr. Weah. This is why he inherited, all right? Ellen and her family ran Liberia with her friends. Nobody questioned that. So why would he not do the same thing? And when he was anointed by her. So this is what it is. So what it demands as we make these discussions is people, Liberians, whether you call them nationalists, call them whatever they may. These are people who understand what the country is about. They want to rescue the country from itself. And those are the kind of leaders we need.
And that brings up to the question, because actually voting, after the vote, we have to govern. We need someone to govern. And it's at that point, according to what Mr. Sondah said, that if you are looking at your own ethnic group to be the one to get all the big jobs or to control all the power, that's wrong. Nancy, what's the
That is absolutely wrong, because your ethnic group does not own the wealth of the country. Absolutely wrong. But you know the thing about this is, if any African leader, including Liberia, have not learned a lesson from this, then I don't know what they will learn.
Yeah.
Because Samuel Doe did it, and it was. I mean, let's lay the American-Liberians issue aside yet. But when an indigenous person became president of Liberia, in the sense that, I mean, the Congo is another ethnic group or group there with identity. When indigenous Liberian became the president of Liberia, what did he do? What did he do? What was the result? This is where we learn. There's always cause and effect. Samuel Doe brought in the crown people, gave them position of power and all of that. And we know what happened. So every government in Liberia should learn from this, and please do not do it, because it doesn't work well for your people and the country as a whole. It creates a lot of animosity. It creates a lot of resentment. And of course, when something happens, those are the people that have to be hiding themselves for their life. Not all the crown people enjoy from Samuel Doe, but you know what? Majority of them. So it's just a lesson to learn that it should not happen. And that takes me back to when you talked about the Congo people who are now, probably, I don't know what the issues are, or the American Liberians. If I was an American Liberian, I'd be saying what my great-great-grandfathers did to Liberia, or Liberians when they came to the indigenous people, was so wrong. You see this work? This is the work I'm doing for my PhD. And I can tell you the history of Liberia is very dark with respect to the American Liberians. So I don't see any reason why an American Liberian would be so angry to rise up and say they want anywhere back. They need to come together, and we all work together as Liberians and build that country.
Thank you. I want us to, because we're talking about governance, so I want us to kind of think about different administrations. Maybe if we can go far back, or from J.J. Roberts to now, to see which of the administration will say practice a lot of tribalism in governance. You ready for that?
Samuel Doe.
Let me think about that. Let me play this.
Samuel Doe. Yesterday.
That was our friend Professor Jones Dopo. A song entitled Kabaway, meaning bachelor. Let's start. Let's wind this down. We look at our various administration and we say, well, this one really practiced tribalism to the zenith, or with nepotism or whatever you call it. Let me start with you, or Mr. Sondah. Which of the administration you think?
Well, no, here's what I have to say about this. I'm not trying to single a particular, but given the politics of our time, for the 130 some more years that the American Liberian ruled our country, they dominated the government. Everything was with them. And like I told you, I live in Painesville, which was one of the bastions of Congoism. I experienced it at first sight. So even in kindergarten and getting to elementary school and all of that. So even at the university, there was one professor that used to teach a particular class. I'm not going to call her name, but she would call the other people with a, that kind of name. It was an English class. She would call the other guy's name. The other people, the Yaba Uloden in that class there, it didn't even matter. It was remedial English class. So yeah, basically for the 130 years, along came the military. So there has been a lot of missteps. So if
you said that, but that's not, I say if you say that the American Liberian practice more tribalism than any other, that's maybe you are among the minority saying it, because we don't look at them as being an ethnic group. So when we talk of tribalism, we don't really mention them. For instance, when Mrs. Salih was in power, people rather use nepotism, even though it's as bad, than tribalism.
Yeah, but this is what we do. We need to do education. I think we all here have agreed that we need to educate ourselves. The people that are writing for us, they speak. There are some people are doing research and doing it. I mean, they come and get the advantage. Liberian academics, where are we? Where are they? We should be doing research work at a university. That it has a lot of resources out there that they can provide. If you make money doing that, all right? So we should be doing that. Look into these things. The religious people that dominated our country, because that's my background. If you delve into the activity in Liberia, you'll be shocked. Okay? So these are things we need to study and try to tell our people and educate our people. It's not something we should sit down and say, oh yeah, because a Western professor have not come to validate or to identify these people as this. The manner and form in which they conducted themselves and the discrimination that they carry on, to the point that you have to adapt their names before you go to places that be that way you are. Ask your people, he will tell you, all right? And other people, the Tobanatipote will call it today, he used to be called one Mr. Roberts, right? And there are many of them, many examples.
Mr. Larsah,
Well,
Mr. Larsah, I think when we talk of tribalism in Liberia, or when it comes to the President Samuel Doe is the first that people minds run on.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. First of all, let me just make a departure from our last discussion when I spoke of how I believe Southeasterners did really demonstrate voting on tribal line. I spoke that in the context of positivity. I had said earlier that tribalism is good. Loyalty to one's tribe is good. It becomes bad when it is extreme. I don't think voting for your fellow tribal man is extreme, but it is good to know that. And Dennis, I would recommend to you to use this platform that to actually intellectualize this kind of debate so that people get comfortable discussing it and then begin to learn and absorb that. As a way of discussion, that these topics are not taboos. But when you talk about the administration that was most tribalistic, I will first of all like to say that it's definitely the Samuel Doe administration, very, very tribalistic. Not only extreme tribalism or acute tribalism. And it's not one way, it was both ways. It came from down and it also came from up. That is, the leadership was promoting, projecting, implementing tribalism, and the people down, whether willingly or unwillingly, became a part of that. So the tribalism, as Sondah was saying, somebody who is president for the Market Women Association should not be a very powerful person. So that was tribalism being projected from down upward. So I would say it's a do. But let me say this: the American Liberians do have a lot to say when it comes to what good they did for the country. It is not in void. They did a lot of good things for Liberia. When it came to Liberia, they came with immense, vast assets, personal education, a skill set, business, commerce, and the like. In fact, by the time Liberia used to be a trading country, a trading commercial center where people have a ship building. It used to be, at one point, Liberia used to be known for ship building. We used to build ships along the St. Paul River. They build ships and sell it to other countries. Why do you see that today? It's the American Liberians that did that. And more than that, for all the time that they ruled, the two panelists have said, it's true that they did discriminate against the majority. But what they did was that they operated within a legal framework in which there were requirements for who should participate in the voting process. And if you look at what they did lay a very solid foundation for Liberia.
Jimmy, before you continue, let me stop you that it was during the Thelma era that natives were allowed to vote.
Dennis.
Yeah.
Dennis.
Sondah, wait, let James end his thought.
Correct. So yeah, that's the same point I'm making. That was bad, but the fact is that they did have a legal framework in which democracy was practiced in terms of the basic transition of one administration to another administration, from one man to the next man. They did that. During that time, no man ran for more than 2 terms, except for 2 exceptions. Other than that, there were democratic transition. So when you hear people talking about this is the first time there's democratic transition, transfer of power from one person to another, Ellen Johnson to we are, that's not true. There has always been, until Tubman came in and captured power and seized it and abused it. The American Liberians have a lot of good legacies that we should be able to speak about.
No, we're talking about one ethnic group dominating for 133 years. But let me Mr. Sondah, continue. Yeah. Okay, go ahead before Nancy comes.
Probably there could be a discussion for a different day. But I respectfully disagree with my dear brother here when he tries to project. Because first of all, if this were a debate, if these people, as he claimed, the vestiges of their development should still be there. My wife and family left to go visit home. It took them over 2 days to get to Plibo. Liberia, the road is impassable since the 1800s. What the industry they were operating, where are they? Where are their factories? Where are the remnants of this thing? We want to see them.
I can name you them.
Oh, okay.
So we'll have a discussion on a different day, but everybody has their choice, and so I respect my brother on that.
Okay. Nancy, before you can. Okay, go ahead, Nancy. I have a call on the line. Yeah.
James,
yeah,
I love you, but you know what? I'll tell you this, right? The American Liberians, as a social worker sitting here, I will tell you what it did to Liberia or indigenous Liberian. Oppression is one of the worst things you can do to a group of people, right? That's what it did. Liberia is suffering the ramification from the behavior of American Liberians, right? Who were those in power? Who were those that were heading all these things and opening all these places? They were American Liberians. Indigenous Liberians were absolutely, Lower Sondah said, you can't even call your name, Flomo. They laughed. Then why are they even putting you in political offices? D12, during Tubman's administration, wanted to run for a political office. In fact, he referred to D12 as a idiot that America and Liberians met here and were trying to transition into some sort of literacy, and they're coming into wanting to take over. There is nothing so good they did other than you can build buildings and you suppress the minds of people and expect them to wake up in no time. The effects of American Liberians is what Liberian experiencing. Notwithstanding, I don't think we should dwell so much on that. I think we should all work together and build this country to become a better place.
Hey, Mr. John, Mr.
John, and Canada did it to indigenous Canadian, and they are 26 years behind. They are still reaping it.
Okay.
So you can go for 100 plus years and say, when you leave, everything should be okay. You've left a trail there, and it will take a while to heal.
We have a caller on the line, and we are about to wrap up. So, caller, quickly, your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Eastman. I'm calling from Washington, D.C. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jimmy. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. Your question or comment?
Yes, I have both. I appreciate the forum. It's something we need to talk about. As you can see, there is a lot of pain, and I think there is a greater need for clarification and for what the situation was. I agree with Mr. Sondah in a way, because to review the Americo-Liberian Congo group, anything you want to call it, to group them as a tribe. I say that the best thing to show who they are is at least they are people, and people can be a tribe. So if we look at it like this, tribalism seems similar to sectionalism, which is basically restricting the interests to a narrow few. Okay? So this is something that was true. It did go on. The resources of the country were not divided or not invested throughout the country. It was only put in specific places, specific areas where they were. Okay, and where they were the immediate beneficiaries. Now, if you're going to tax somebody, if you're going to make them pay taxes, they should also reap the benefits of their taxes. Not only that, also, if you're going to tax somebody, they should have a right, a franchise to vote, to elect, to their officials and whatnot. They need representation. All that, it was a denial of rights and was wrong. But we need to go back and reflect what period of history this was.
Right.
You see, these people came from the antebellum South. Some of the people came from America. Not every one of them came from America, but they came with their ideologies to settle in Africa. Africa, those days, let's face it, people were living in little bit huts. Few places were exposed, like places like Timbuktu, but a lot of the Pepper Coast where we find Liberia today, that place was just people living in little huts, doing their little fishing, doing their little hunting. They were not exposed. Now, here these people, they're about to join these people. They also have to survive. And survival those days means you have to find a way to preserve yourself.
Right.
So they were faced with the need to survive somehow, where they were a minority. There were tribal wars going on those days too. People the tribes didn't trust each other. That was one of the other things that went on. So their inability to survive in a more wholesome way, including everybody, is where we see the fault. In other words, tribalism has always been one of our deepest weaknesses.
Yes.
That is a problem we have since 1847 to today. But knowing that, it is still a weakness today. Anybody who ventures to use tribalism to advance any agenda will be repeating the same error those people did.
Absolutely.
Because tribalism, like racism, is something that feeds on itself. Look what you mentioned the Sami Kanyadu. Look what happened during his rule. Everybody hailing. We marched to the mansion that day from the university. We thought he was a hero. But but for the thirst for power before you know it, he only considered his tribal group. And he can cause a massacre against the Malingear people. It was tribalism. I'm only saying, those people are very wrong, but you are equally as wrong today if you use tribalism in any way or form to advance a political agenda.
Amen.
Amen. That's good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's one reason why we decided to do the show. We hear this thing about tribalism, but these are things that we don't easily talk about or kind of sit across and delve into without calling each other names. Right now in our Liberian politics today, tribalism is the name we hear. In fact, the entire southeastern region has become like an ethnic group now. So what I see is from time to time, like right now, there are crew people that are opposed to Josh Weir, that are in opposition, and there are crew people that are in favor. So it's really sometimes hard to put because our groups are not monolithic. Let me read something from Dr. Brewer that he wrote on, when I asked him a private question, say, does ethnic group have anything to do with the county of origin? Listen to what Dr. Brewer said, and we'll use that to wrap up. He said, I would like to look at the issue from two angles. First, counties were not created by the ethnic groups. Counties in Liberia are the creation of the central state. To put it another way, counties are not an organic outgrowth from the population who live there, but rather an entity imposed from on top and from outside. The boundaries and the administrative structures to enforce the boundaries and the administrative structures to enforce it ran roughshod over pre-existing arrangements. In the process, transforming the relationship and identities of the people already living on the land. This has been going on since the creation of Liberian state. The late 19th and 20th century Liberian state is doing this, assigning ethnicity to a region to more easily control its inhabitants. It is the system of indirect rule which the Liberian state borrowed from the French and British, who brought this system to the rest of Africa in the time period of European colonial rule. Second, key assumptions behind the concept of ethnic group are that a person or group's cultural identity is fixed, never changing, and that people's cultural identities, attachments, and loyalties are monolithic and homogeneous. This is an historical way of thinking and can be empirically disproven in so many ways, not only in Africa, in Liberia and Africa, but all over the world. And listen to this. He says, culture and cultural identities, like political and religious beliefs and social practices, are fluid and subject to change over time. They are shaped by a variety of things. Humans by nature hold multiple identities. One identity does not always take precedence over the other all the time. Sometimes one's various identities contradict each other. One's decision to act or not act on the basis of an identity depends on the circumstances people find themselves in, circumstances we do not control. Your comments to that and your closing remarks, so we can wrap this up. Let me start with you, James.
Oh, thank you, Dennis. First, yeah, in order to close, let me just say that speaking of the American Liberians' contribution to the country, they didn't mean that everything said so far is not true. I am trying to emphasize the fact that even as one can be all the bad or do all the bad, there is a way to give to him what is due him. For example, in America, you have the founding father of the nation, George Washington, or the father of the US Constitution. All of those people are very much revered in America. That does not mean they don't have the bad side. We should be able to, as much as we want to speak to the drawbacks of the American Liberians in Liberia, we should be able to intellectualize the debate and be able to discuss discuss it in a balanced way, so that wherever they did good, we should have the capacity to admit and state and emphasize that. So that was my point. But overall, I want to state that ethnicity is one thing. Ethnicity is about consciousness. Is one's consciousness about his heritage, his cultural background. Tribalism is a loyalty. Is a loyalty that one has to his tribe. And I have emphasized what is extreme tribalism or acute tribalism. We should be able to intellectualize a debate so that we can split up this whole thing, not just tribalism, but tribalism and acute tribalism, so that while one can feel a sense of pride and be loyal to his tribe in various ways of positivity, there is a way that when it is done, it can be viewed as acute tribalism that is dangerous, that is bad and extreme. And how do you demarcate? How do you tell the difference? The difference is when there's a public outcry, when there's appearance that it is going on, when there's a perception that what is happening with the present government, when people are accusing it of appointing officials based on tribal line, whether it is true or not, to me, that is the beginning for us to get a look around and have a second look to see whether there's merit. And to me, that is a way of measuring it. On that, I would like to stop and submit, to my colleagues.
Mr. Sondah.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I appreciate the fact our brother, he tried to be balanced, which I think I kind of accept. In terms of course, there was not everything bad that was done. There were some good things, about, especially during the Toba era. When you read the Liberian history, you will see that. But if you also look at African American slave culture, if you do a study, you will see that some of the vestiges of what they experienced here were supplanted back home, and which to some significant extent is responsible for where we find ourselves today. There's this Pele adage of, I think it's kind of popular, you can't hide your naked body for your bath bucket. You want to have your bath, you can't hide you, obviously. So we are born into various groups. So we can't negate that. There's no way you can divest yourself of that, and you didn't ask to be part of it. So it was a little bit appalling when people were targeted because of that ethnic origin, because some of these people, these tribes, they didn't ask to be Madingo Crown or Gio or Pele or whatever. So, but to a significant extent, Liberia has a glorious opportunity again to make amends in all aspects of our existence. We tried in the 1800s and we failed. In the 1980s, we failed, and now we are in this era. Of course, we had anticipated that the last 12 years, because it's taken like 10 years for Kagame to get Rwanda up and running. And for those of you and myself who live in Ghana, who spent at least a decade in Ghana, we saw the transformation that our country experienced within 10 years before some of us left. And it's been almost 15, 16, 17 years since I left. And ever since, when I go back, I see something new. We had 12 years. And within that 12 years, we have nothing to show. And which tells me that there was an agenda. I don't know what it was about, but the opportunity is there for Liberians. And when you visit our country, you see the enthusiasm among young children, young people, to go to school to learn. And technology has even made it better. I was just talking to my wife today. We were talking about the neglect of our people in the past to provide infrastructure development for them all these years. And with the advent of technology, my aunt in the village owns a cell phone and she can communicate with me even though she's not educated. So those things that we fail to do, in the future to come, there will be something that will be created that will transcend what we have. And then we will be called to order. Our brother alluded to that. People complain about everybody on Facebook talking because technology provides that. And if we have created a basis to have an educated public, sophisticated public, they will use these phones in sophisticated ways. The way we vote, it will change. We'll be voting on issues. We'll not be having this discussion here because it will be issues driven. People will be questioned, what is the platform? But people don't care because of some of these things. So there is an opportunity for a national conference, not to do conflict resolution, but to start Liberia afresh and bring in all the expertise that Liberia has locally and internationally. And together we can build our country. We can draw an agenda that will help to build our country and push us forward in the agenda that we see around the world with other countries making progress today. We cannot make progress, we can't be the rest of the people when we are still having these kind of issues. Look, Bonka, the Phoebe Hospital of all places, is in darkness. Can you imagine that? The major referral hospital in the heart of Liberia. You have lawmakers and other people from that region, and some of them drive and pass by. The other day, a lawmaker from Nimba was involved in an accident in Kakata. He had to be taken to a nearby hospital for treatment. But they forget all of these things. These places are not equipped to address that situation when they arise. So we have a big issues on our hands until our leaders recognize that this country, we are different, but we are one people. And all the noise we're hearing here, oh yeah, there's Southeasterner here, oh, there's Parliament here, the Gilman here. Those things will not be talked about if we all focus ourselves on a greater agenda for the future of Liberia. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Reeves.
Thank you so much, Dennis. I'm happy to be a part of this panel. And I'm happy we have, ethnic groups that we can affiliate ourselves with and call ourselves whether Bassa, Pele, or so forth. But as James said, the extreme becomes the problem. And when you have people who don't have the education to understand the critical aspect of governance and the impact it can have on society, then of course I come down to intellectualize where I stand, Mr. James, as a social worker and say poverty, right? Poverty takes over. And what we have in Liberia is poverty. Elections results are determined by the level of poverty and of course, lack of education we have. We can't doubt it that a lot of the boys that are now called Zongo boys voted for President Weah. They thought he was a savior for them. Absolutely, I think that was wonderful. What I look up to as a social worker, as a scholar, as a professor, as a therapist, I looked at how the lives of these children can be made better for Liberia. As we said, we have our historical past with Congo, America, Liberian, Samuel Doe. We have not learned any good lessons from that, right? Tribalism, the extreme side of it is not good. We saw what happened in Rwanda, the 100 years of oppression in Liberia. This is the time, and I always said it, I've been saying it on the CDC chat room, it's about time, as Samuel said, Liberians gave room to Liberians with the knowledge, with the expert knowledge to help build this country, because this country belongs to all of us. It belongs to all of us. And I know President Weah is carrying a lot that Ellen Johnson should have done, but I so wonder why the noise that is being made now was not made during Ellen Johnson's time. Why did we allow her to go free? But it's a lesson to be learned. We've all learned it. And if the lesson starts with President Weah, great. One thing I want to say to Liberians, don't try to force an elected president out of office when you have a constitution. Don't try to do that. That is not right. So let his time be over. We can all learn. Let his time be over, and we elect a person through the constitution or the ballot of the box, and not forcefully, because it doesn't help the country. And too many people would die. 250,000 people died, and nothing happened. So we cannot force things to happen. We have to work along with them and make things happen. Thank you.
And you keep referring to the June 7 protest and also all that. So by popular demand, pretty soon we're going to be bringing you a show on the June 7th. We've been asked to do something. So we are encouraging all sides of the debate, pro and against the June 7th planned protest, to reach out to us. The organizer of the June 7th, reach out to us. Those who are opposed to it, those who are in government who think that that shouldn't happen. I understand there's another counter protest coming on the following day called Assembly of Country People, which the Deputy Information Minister spoke about. So we want to plan something along those lines so we can have your voice heard here. I want to really thank all of you for coming and discussing this. As I said, we are just scratching the surface. We just want to show to our people that these issues need to be discussed. And so this is just the beginning of a long discussion that we all can have. So if you are watching us by Facebook Live, please share the video and continue the dialogue so that we can talk about these things that we once considered taboo. Next week, we're going to be going back to our series on bright ideas for Liberia. And next week, we're going to be dealing with teaching teachers, or the teacher education. Someone has a bright idea how we can teach teachers. And that person will be our guest here, Professor Nancy Reeves, who's going to share with us her bright idea in teacher education. Right after that, the following Sunday is going to be a bright idea on emergency response. And so keep tuned, keep supporting us, keep encouraging us. We are indebted to people that we talk to. We are focused on Liberia team is very small, but we have so many people that we talk to even before we organize this show. We thank all our guests, both past and present. We continue to tap into we continue to bounce things off them, and we really appreciate all the support we're getting. We also want to appreciate those who continue to watch us. We appreciate all the comments, and we'll do our best to keep this on. And the more we talk about this, we want to still emphasize that we don't want any war. We suffer too much from war. Listen to this. Again from Jones Dopo, war is not good. Tell them, no to war, I suffer too much. Look, 1990, my family and I walked to Carpentry. 92, we walked to Lot. 96, we walked to almost Ganta. So war is not good. My father was killed in the war. My aunt, everybody else. So I just hit war with my 5 siblings.
You move my face around the TV now. Sondah, you were in Ghana, right?
Yeah, well, we know each other. Why are you asking that question? We're supposed to be.
No, because you said 10 years you were there. I didn't live on.
Well, you and myself, we used to talk. You don't remember me from camp? We interacted on that camp. You don't remember?
How many years have been? 19 or more years.
Well, I remember you, so why not?
You remember me? Oh, wow. I thought I grew old.
All right.
So we all have age, but at least if you see the face and the way you talk, I mean, you talk the same way, your gesture and everything.
Oh, I'm sorry if I didn't remember you.
No problem. No, I know. Oh, what do we on the panel? Don't worry about it.
I just met James and I know him, right?
Thank you. I do know you too.
From Bongande.
Yeah. Who got to know?
I don't know why this guy decided to get a panel of better speaking people.
It wasn't intentional. It just wasn't intentional. I don't think so.
I know. It was funny, but it's good. I mean, validates a lot of issues out there for people, you know. Yeah.
All right. Before I end, want to say thank you from my co-host. My co-host was not able to be here. She has lost her cousin, someone who is less, Danielle Knuckles lost her cousin, who is less than 40 years old. She took 4 hours she passed away. Our hearts go out to Miss Knuckles, who passed away in OKC, and our hearts go out. Danielle is our co-host. Her cousin passed away in OKC just yesterday, within less than 24 hours. So she was not able to be on the show tonight. Once again, want to say thank you for coming, and we'll see you next week.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.